guys, welcome back to another episode of Pressing Matters. And this episode is going to be slightly different from the previous ones because today we are going to be discussing Manchester United and basically what Erik Ten Hag has brought to Manchester United, what they have to look forward to as a club or as fans for the next season. And we are going to be discussing their transfers, some of which are quite excellent, one of which is a painful topic for Chelsea fans, but nevertheless it's a very interesting team to talk about as of now. So let's get into it. The first thing that I want to bring up when it comes to Manchester United is the fact that they have signed an excellent striker from Atalanta in Syria, and his name is Rasmus Hojlund. Now, why I am jumping onto the Rasmus Hojlund bandwagon is because despite all of the jokes and all of the razz that is coming his way, because he looks like Erling Haaland and has quite a resemblance to Erling Haaland in his play as well as in his physicality. Despite all of that, I think Rasmus Hojlund is an excellent player and he brings a lot to the table. He brings the kind of physicality and the skill that United have been looking for in a forward for a very long time. So I would say that he is an excellent acquisition for the Red Devils. Another thing that I want to discuss is the fact that he has the capability to do what Erik Ten Hag expects from his strikers, which is not necessarily what every team wants. So Erik Ten Hag wants his strikers to pin centre-backs up towards the goal. So basically what he wants to do is he wants to play a 4-3-3 of sorts with one centre attacking mid that is far forward, which is going to be BrunoFernandes, and he is going to sit ahead of two players. One is going to be MasonMount and the other is going to be Casemiro. And this formation is quite similar to what Chelsea are doing as of now, but there are differences in how this formation plays out and what kind of a style Erik Ten Hag wants to employ through this formation. So that is a very unique example of how two similar looking systems can bring very different results. So what I was talking about a minute ago is that Erik Ten Hag wants Rasmus Hojlund or any striker that he is using to be further up the pitch near the goal, possibly or most likely near the D-top, and he wants to make sure that that striker's presence over there keeps the centre backs of the opposite team pinned upwards, so they are occupied with the striker himself, and that creates more space for the midfield and for players like MasonMount and BrunoFernandes, who are always going to be coming upwards beyond the halfway line and near the D-top. It makes more space for those players to operate in that area and do what they do in a creative manner. Another thing that Rasmus Hojlund brings to the table is that even though at Atalanta he had the tendency to go wide and occupy wide spaces and try and get his players or his teammates to occupy or make runs in the center and occupy that space so that he could put the ball to them in the center. Even though he used to do that at Atlanta quite often, he is not going to be doing this at Manchester United because that is not the brief that Erik Ten Hag is going to give him. He will most likely be placed in the center and he will not have the remit to go towards the wider areas, which will be occupied by Rashford on the left and most likely Anthony on the right. Now, is Anthony a good option? Does he bring enough to the table to make him a viable right winger? I don't agree with that because I think there are certain aspects of his game that are lacking, but Erik Ten Hag has worked with Anthony in Ajax and he could make sure that he changes his profile and makes him play in a slightly different manner which suits United. Now, Erik Ten Hag also expects Hojlund to use his strength and his physicality, which Hojlund has, which are his biggest attributes. He wants Hojlund to use those abilities to hold the ball up. So basically when the ball is pinged at him from a distance, from, say, the defensive line, or maybe from Onana, who is the new goalkeeper, who we will get to in a little bit. When the ball is put towards him from the back line from a distance, Erik Ten Hag expects Hojlund to hold the ball up, so control it on his chest or control it on his feet or on his thigh, and then he wants him to be able to maintain possession and wait for the rest of the team to catch up with him so that he can play with them and then make runs forward. So that hold-up play is a major aspect that was lacking in the forward line in Manchester United, which is something that Hojlund is going to bring to the table. And one of the questions that is being raised about Hojlund, which even I want answered, and that question will only be answered when he starts playing in the Premier League, is whether Hojlund is going to be clinical enough and whether he's going to be able to score enough goals to make up for that lack in the forward line. Yes, they have MarcusRashford coming in from the left, who can also work as a striker, but then since Hojlund is going to come in, he is going to go back to his preferred position and come in from the left, and he can also produce goals. But as the new trend, or as the old trend that was prevalent that is coming back now dictates, now a lot of teams, especially the top teams, want a number 9 who has the ability to produce at least 20 to 25 goals every season and make sure that that tally is maintained. So the only question about Rasmus Hojlund as of now is whether he's going to be clinical enough to be able to produce those kind of numbers. Another thing about Hojlund that is a positive is the fact that most of his shots are taken from inside the box. So he is not the kind of striker who is going to engage in hold-up play outside the box near the halfway line and then run at the goal and take a shot from distance very, very often. That is not something that he is known for, and that is not a bad thing. That is actually a very good thing, because what United and most teams who are employing a number 9 now need is somebody who can be in the D and receive the ball when it is crossed at them and finish and score goals. So that is the profile that is required even at United and at other big clubs as well. So that is one positive, because if you look at Hojlund's profile up till now, especially if you look at his time at Atalanta, you see that that is what he is proficient at. He stays in the box and he is always there to convert chances that are created for him. And that is a big plus to United now. One statistic that is going to add to what Hojlund is bringing is the fact that out of every 5 shots that he takes, he scores at least 1. At an average, I think he has a 0.18 average, which translates roughly to 1 shot in every 5 going in as a goal, which is not a bad statistic, because if he is given enough service, if Rashford and Anthony and Bruno and Mount are able to give him chances, create chances for him, then most likely he will be able to score at a good rate, because he should be getting at least 4 to 5 chances in every game if things are going well. So if the rest of the team is providing him with those chances, then he is most likely going to score at least 1 goal in every 2 games, even in the Premier League. So let's see if he can produce those numbers. Now we are going to switch over to another signing that Manchester United has brought in from Inter Milan. And I know that there have been certain situations in the preseason where he was beaten and somebody scored against him. But Onana is an excellent player. And no matter how many memes people make up about him or how many jokes people crack about him, Onana as of now is one of the best keepers in the world, and we have seen that in Inter's Champions League run last season. Onana was a major factor in that run, and he saved Inter time and again when the goal was attacked and there was nobody else to protect it. He also brings something very interesting to the table, which I was talking about in my last video when I was discussing Pochettino's Chelsea. Like Kepa, Onana is a very, very good ball playing goalkeeper. So he is basically like one addition or another addition to the outfield. So instead of playing with 10 players who are going to be creating passes and running with the ball and passing the ball, interplaying with each other, Onana makes it a team of 11 that can function with a numerical advantage. So you can start plays from Onana, and he has the ability to put the ball higher up and even reach Hojlund or Rashford or Anthony on the wings, or Bruno or Mount or Casemiro in the midfield, which is a big plus. Why it is a big plus is because Ten Hag has said this time and again. He wants Manchester United to play the way Manchester United has traditionally played in the Premier League and in Europe. Now, what that means is he wants Manchester United to be the best transitional team in the game. A transitional team basically wants to gather the ball when they're being attacked, get possession, and then quickly put the ball up to their forward line, to their strikers or their wingers, and not maintain possession and slowly play the ball up towards the opponent's goal. And that is something that has consistently improved under Ten Hag even last season, despite the fact that he did not have a forward to match that style and fulfill those requirements. So with Hojlund coming in, with Rashford being on the wing and being able to collect the ball, with Anthony probably being able to manage that job as well, with players like Mount and Bruno who are going to be able to collect the ball when it's thrown at them from, say, Varane or Lisandro Martinez or Onana, they now have the option to become that transitional team that is excellent and counters very quickly. And that is something that opponent teams will have to look out for, because I genuinely believe that this season United are going to be the team that strikes back so quickly, that counters so quickly, that they will be catching a lot of teams off guard. Another signing that is going to help United a lot is Mason Mount. And why I say that is because not only is Mason Mount excellent on the ball when he has it, and he is a very hard worker, he's very defensively responsible and capable of creating offensively and even scoring goals as a midfielder. The best thing that Mason Mount brings to the table is something that Eriksen lacks, and Eriksen is going to be replaced by Mount here. So what Eriksen lacks is, number one, the ability to play at the same pace for 90 minutes because of his illness and his age. But Mason Mount has the ability to play at a consistent pace for 90 minutes and maintain that intensity. And the best part about his gameplay is that he works far better off the ball than he does on the ball, even though he's very good on the ball. What that means is he builds runs and builds spaces, occupies players with those defenders with those runs very well. And he knows how to mold the opponent's defense and pull opponent defenders, midfielders towards him so that he can create space for other players. He also knows where to be at the right time to collect the ball and maybe initiate attacks or finish attacks for Manchester United, which is something that Eriksen was not capable of, because towards the second half of a game, Eriksen would start tiring and then he would take a more stationary role in the game. And Mason Mount is going to change that, because not only will he be able to provide a lot of assistance in the attack and also add in with goals, he is also defensively responsible, and without the ball he is going to make those runs that are very important to create space for his teammates. So yeah, Mason Mount is going to be somebody to look out for. I think he is going to have a very good breakout season with United this particular season, and maybe he's going to make Chelsea fans like me regret the fact that he left our team. Now we're going to get into a more thorough tactical analysis, even though a lot of the player profiles we have discussed have been tactically associated. I want to discuss the tactics that Ten Hag is using to make United the team that he wants to, and make United a team that is slightly Cruyffian but still more pragmatic than a Johan Cruyff team would have been. So, like I said, Ten Hag wants to make Manchester United the best transitional team. So he wants United to have the ability to collect the ball in defense, break down attacks, and then put the ball up very quickly and transition to the opponent's goal very quickly so that they're caught off guard. Not only that, he also wants the team to counter press very well. So the difference between pressing and counter pressing is, when United is attacking and say for example they lose the ball on the wing through Luke Shaw, or say on the right wing through Anthony, because you're doing something flashy and he gives the ball away. What United want to do is they want their players on that particular part of the pitch to converge onto the ball, close the space and counter press very, very quickly, close the spaces between defenders and not allow people to find those passing lanes. And the most important thing they want to do while they counter press is to get the ball back within the first 5 to 8 seconds to the maximum in 10 seconds. So if United are not gathering the ball or getting it back after losing it in attack within the first 5 to 10 seconds, then they're going to fall back and settle into a 4-4-2 formation in defense, which is what Erik Ten Hag has been doing and what he's been training his team to perform. Now, this is a very good tactic, because if you can gain the ball back after losing it quickly in your opponent's half or in your opponent's 1/3, defensive 1/3, which is near their goal, then you have the ability to quickly get the ball back and start attacking again, and possibly find gaps in the opponent's defense, because the moment the opponent gets the ball, they will want to move forward and their players will start moving forward and making runs, which will leave space. And if they lose the ball in that area, then United can collect it and quickly use that space to attack the goal. And BrunoFernandes is going to be very important in this whole process, and I will explain why in a little bit. So Erik Ten Hag wants his wingers and midfielders to be fluid and interchangeable in play. The perfect example of this is when Hojlund is sitting up top and he has Bruno and MasonMount occupying the half spaces. So if we divide the length of the pitch into 5 spaces, the wingers are going to be taking the outside space. MasonMount and BrunoFernandes are going to be taking the half spaces, so the spaces inside that, and the central channel is going to be for Casemiro in the defensive position and Hojlund in the forward line. So this is how they want to function. And the most important thing that Erik Ten Hag wants to inculcate in his team is that the wingers, so Anthony and Rashford, Bruno and Mount in the middle, in the midfield, in the half spaces, should be able to interchange positions. So Anthony should have the ability to come inwards if Bruno is going outwards to create a chance, and on the other side Rashford should have the ability to come inwards if Mount is going onto the wing. And this interchangeability makes them a very confusing attack to defend against. And this is something that Erik Ten Hag wants, because he wants his players to function in the same system no matter where they are positioned when the transition happens. Because often in a transition, attacking players end up in the wrong position because they were defending and they went out to counter press, and now all of a sudden a midfielder like BrunoFernandes ends up on the right wing. So in that situation, Erik Ten Hag wants his winger to then occupy the space that is supposed to be for BrunoFernandes in the half space. And he wants his wingers and midfielders to be able to switch between each other's positions seamlessly. And even in the middle, in the 2 half spaces, he wants Bruno and Mount to be interchangeable so they can go either way and still function well and still carry attacks forward. So this is actually a very Cruyffian tactic. This is something that Johan Cruyff and his philosophy of total football dictates, where any player on the pitch should be able to function in any position and should be able to interchange with any other teammate when the situation requires it. A good example of this transitional play is that last season Manchester United had 102 direct attacks in transitions, where they put the ball up from the back line and quickly put it into attack and try to attack the opponent's goal. And out of those 102 direct attacks, they scored 9 direct attack goals, which was the best in the Premier League and the second best metric in Europe. The only team that did better than United at transitional attacks was Real Madrid, and they had 104 direct attacks and 12 direct attack goals. So they were not too far off. They were just 2 direct attacks above and 3 goals above Manchester United, which is quite impressive, because if you look at it in a certain manner, Manchester United is trying to emulate part of Real Madrid's technique, where Real Madrid absorb pressure, get the ball back in defense and just throw it up for Benzema or somebody like Modric to carry it forward, or Cruz to plant it forward for the forward line of Benzema, Rodrigo, or whoever is up there, and then they gain a lot of goals through those kind of attacks. So Erik Ten Hag wants his team to function in the same manner and quickly be able to pump the ball up so that they can attack when the opponent's defense is out of position and they've come too far forward in the process of attacking Manchester United. Now, I had mentioned that BrunoFernandes is going to be the key figure in this whole process. And the reason why I'm saying that is that unlike most central midfielders who are tasked with the job of collecting the ball and recycling it to the left channel or the right channel or towards the center for the forward line, unlike that whole process where a central midfielder will hold the ball, play with his midfielders or put it on the wing and keep cycling the ball around, BrunoFernandes has a player profile that is slightly different. He is a very good central midfielder and he is very good as a center attacking midfielder when he's going forward, but the one thing that he does is he hardly ever passes the ball backwards. He has no interest in playing the ball backwards and trying to maintain possession by playing it sideways. He is always looking to pass the ball forwards. In fact, if you look at his metrics, out of all the central midfielders in the Premier League, he is the one who on an average puts more forward balls out of the total passes that he makes than anybody else. And this is very important because if you want to be a transitional team, then you need somebody who is going to take the ball from the defense and quickly put it up instead of playing it sideways or backwards and trying to maintain possession and waiting for the rest of the team to move upwards. So BrunoFernandes is going to be key in this process. I am not very fond of BrunoFernandes because I don't like his attitude and how much he whines and bitches on the pitch. Regardless of that, I do recognize that he has the ability to quickly make passes to the wings or towards Hojlund, who is going to be the attacker, and cover a lot of space and make those transitions even faster. Manchester United, like I said, are now a better counter-pressing and pressing team, and they want to gain the ball within 5 to 10 seconds. And this is going to help them not just keep the pressure on the opponent's team, but also make sure that the opponents don't have enough space and time to attack them very, very quickly and catch them off guard when they are placed upwards on the pitch. So this is a good tactic that Manchester United is using to make their defense a little more potent, because when they counter press effectively, they take away the opponent's team's ability to play as a transitional team, which is what Manchester United want to do. So because they want to play as a transitional team and put players forward very, very quickly, they can sometimes find themselves out of position, but the counter pressing makes sure that the other team cannot exploit that. And the last thing that I want to point out is that if the counter press fails, they are not going to fall back into the 4-3-3 position roughly, which Erik Ten Hag is using to initiate attacks and play outwards. They are then going to fall back into a 4-4-2 position in which Rashford and Hojlund will be the two up front, and Anthony will have to fall back and make the back four with Casemiro, Bruno and Mount. And the reason why this is a good tactic is that if you cannot gain the ball back after losing it while you're attacking and you're up on the pitch near the opponent's goal, if you can't gain it back in the first 5 to 10 seconds, then you have to sit back and try and let the team come towards you and block the goal. Basically what we call parking the bus in football, so that the opponent's team has to try and break down the whole defense to get to the goal, and in the process they lose the ball out because they don't have too many options. So this is a very good tactic, and if United can make sure that if their counter press fails, they get back into position very, very quickly and effectively in defense, then they will be able to make sure that their goal is very well protected. So this is a double-edged sword. If you do not get back into position after the counter press fails quickly enough, then yes, you are likely to get countered and you are likely to get beaten on the transition, which will be ironic because that is what they want to do to the opponent's team. But considering the fact that you have an energetic Mount in midfield You have a very experienced and capable Casemiro with him, and BrunoFernandes is always going to be the forward placed player who will be part of the initial counter press. You now have the energy in the midfield to make sure that people can come back in position and come back into that 4-4-2 defensive formation. So this is my take on Manchester United. I genuinely believe that Manchester United are going to be a very interesting team to watch, because they're going to bring a lot of the elements that Real Madrid are famous for, and they're going to bring some elements that Johan Cruyff's Ajax or Johan Cruyff's Barcelona are famous for, that total football philosophy, but with a more pragmatic approach that also takes defense into account. So yeah, I'm very, very interested in seeing how things play out, and I'm also quite intrigued by the idea of Rasmus Hojlund, because despite all of the jokes and the comparisons to Erling Haaland, I think he is an excellent signing. And I have been told by some United fans I'm friends with that his price tag is too high, but I don't believe it is true. In today's market, if you're getting a good young striker who is being quoted by a lot of other big teams, then yeah, I mean 60-65 million is not a bad price. There are teams that would have asked for 80, 90, maybe 100 million. So I would say that it is a good price to buy Rasmus Hojlund as considering the fact that he brings so many attributes to the table that United need. Anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know if you enjoyed the video as a United fan, and please like, share, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.